Director Clark,
Present.
Director Dodd,
Here.
Director Marsh,
Here.
Director Randall. Here. Director Grant.
Here.
And also present is staff member, General Manager Chuck Duffy, Assistant General Manager Hope Atmore, and Legal Counsel Bill Hartman.
Great. And just to start, as usual, with general public participation, public members may comment on matters under the jurisdiction of the district that are not on tonight's agenda. Comments limited to 3 minutes. Would any members of the public like to make any comments on items not on the agenda at this time? Seeing, we're going to move into the agenda. I'm just going to rearrange a little bit the parks and recreation activities since we have Haley Peterson from the Coastside Land Trust here with us in person. Ray is going to join us a little bit later for the rest of the parks and rec update. So Haley, I want to invite you to come in the podium and tell us what's going on with the Coastside Land Trust. I hope we can put the stuff on the screen.
Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm Haley with the Coastside Land Trust, and I run the Junior Land Stewards Program across the Career Unified School District. And thanks to GCSD, we're able to bring this program to Granada Elementary a couple of years ago, and they're in their 3rd year of doing this program. And I have some pictures to show you of what they've been up to so far this year. So here's one of the classes. This year, we are serving 50 4th grade students at Granada. And they have become or are learning to become expert observers of nature through weekly nature journaling lessons. And so far this year, 2 walking field trips and 1 lab, and I'll go over what those have been as well. We start out the year with an introduction to the program in the classroom. We do a nature journaling icebreaker activity. And since then, students have learned to recognize native and invasive plants, how birds of prey hunt for food, and how to observe nature from different perspectives. They've also learned a lot about how their community came to exist, who worked to protect their local park, and how we can be respectful of our open spaces. Oh, sorry. Thank you. So the next slide is just some examples of their work. Yeah, no worries. I think if you would go down to share section.
Good looking feet, huh?
Yeah. Let me try.
I'll just continue talking.
Yeah, let me catch up.
The pictures. Yeah, that's fine. So in October, students learn the basics of nature journaling using the foundational prompts of I notice, I wonder, it reminds me of. And when they're looking at objects in nature, they use these prompts to help guide them in not only looking at something, but getting to know the thing that they're observing and building a relationship with it. The 4th graders become experts at identifying those common native and invasive plants on the coast side. And they create plant wanted posters, which there's an example in this, but we can go back to that, where they learn a lot about a specific invasive plant, where it came from originally, how harmful it is, and why it's considered a problem. In November, students observed from all different perspectives, using a lot of their senses to take in the world around them. So one of these activities included imagining they were a bird of prey flying overhead, and they created a map of what they saw in their nature journals. Students also learned how to zoom in and zoom out when observing something in nature. So getting really close to something, it allows them to see everything in a different way. All right. So in December, we really focus on learning how to ask good questions. So when we're out in nature, there's naturally questions that come about. And we really kind of hone in and focus on that and encourage them to ask more and get deeper and get those questions down in their nature journals. In December, we also start thinking about the plant life cycle and draw models of the plant life cycle in their journals as well.
Yeah, I'm not, for some reason, the link is not coming through now. It's kind of just. So.
Yeah, we've got it in our.
You've
They
got
do
it.
have it.
Okay, great. Okay, so the two field trips that we've gone on, our first one, we worked hard to prepare a garden plot area, which is on the school campus, just outside of the school campus. Students removed invasive plants, the ones that they learned about. Then they sheet mulched the area to prevent invasive plants from going back. And they'll come back actually in a couple of weeks from now to actually plant plants that they've grown from seed, native plants that they've grown from seed to plant in that area that they've prepared. And once once they completed all of that hard work, they went on a naturalist scavenger hunt where they were tasked with identifying more native invasive plants and spotting birds of prey and looking for signs of the fall season. On our second field trip, which was in the beginning of December, this was devoted to learning about the history of Granada and practicing using all of our senses to observe nature. Students got a personal tour from Barbara Dye through Granada and up to the quarry floor, where they learned about how the community was built, who worked to save Quarry Park from being developed, and many interesting facts about the old Ocean Shore Railroad that once came through town. There's a great picture.
I can see it in my pack.
Yeah.
Oh, then we walk by the oldest house in El Granada.
Yeah,
That
that
was
was
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, the kids really love that, for sure. Once we arrived at the quarry floor, students broke off into small groups with their high school field guides. We have high school field guides come to all of our field trips. They're from the marine ecology and AP environmental science classes at the high school. They're wonderful. And sorry, I'm not speaking into the microphone. And they broke off into small groups with their high school docents and were tasked with a couple of activities. One was the secret plant activity, which is kind of like a hide and seek where they draw a plant and their group has to try to find the exact plant that they drew. And then the second activity was sound mapping, which is a very meditative, thoughtful activity where you sit and listen to all the sounds around you in nature and get those sounds down in your nature journal in the form of a map. Using symbols and sound words and pictures and stuff like that. Also, of course, always are discovering critters on our field trips. There's a couple great pictures. One is of the students investigating banana slugs, and the other is of students who found a garter snake in one of the bushes. Fun. So the first lab that we did this year was a planting lab. So we had staff from the Coastside Land Trust and volunteers come to campus on El Granada to help the students plant California native seeds with the hope that they'll, when they grow into pollinator plants. And the students learn the hard way that sometimes they are successful and sometimes they aren't. But that's okay because we have been generously donated extra supplemental plants from the state parks, Half Moon Bay State Park Nursery. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it down at Half Moon Bay State Beach. Every year they donate plants to us for those students who aren't successful in growing their own. But we do have a lot of successful growth this year, which I'll show you towards the end of this presentation. But students plant these seeds. One is fertilized, one is not, and then they see the difference in growth. They do measurements, they do graphing, and all sorts of stuff like that. So it's really fun. Some types of plants that they are planting are buckwheat, seaside daisy, yarrow, bee plant, clarkia, gumweed, and so on. There's many different kinds, and they get to choose what they plant. So that's fun for them as well. And they'll be planting those in a couple of weeks. Let's see, this month, students are going to be doing all that measuring and graphing, which I've just described. And actually next week, we'll be doing our second lab, which is a soil lab. Well, they'll learn all about soil health, texture, erosion, habitat. They get to look at soil under the microscope, and we do a soil analysis where they figure out exactly what type of soil they have in their garden area where they'll be planting. In February and March coming up, students will learn about pollination, the different parts of a flower. They're going to be doing a flower dissection to get really up and close. And they'll learn about the local watershed and how the water cycle works. So 2 more field trips, one I mentioned already, where they'll be planting their plants. And then the second field trip, sorry, the 4th field trip will be going out and nurturing those gardens, doing some weeding, and then doing a final culminating scavenger hunt where they'll be tasked with finding all sorts of fun things in nature. And I think that's about it. We end the year with a certificate ceremony where they all get awarded a certificate saying they completed the Junior Land Stewards program. And I'd love to report back when we're all done.
Great.
That's what you have to.
Thank you. Thank you, Haley. I mean, there aren't a lot of things that we can do for recreation while we're working on creating some venues. So it is really nice to be able to support this program in Granada. So
We're very grateful, so thank you. My daughter is actually in the program this year, so it's really meaningful and fun, and it brings it like full circle for me for sure.
Great. Any questions for Haley?
It's a very well-designed and well-run program. I have to give Haley credit having participated in a lot of the activities. It's really great. And the kids love it. And the high school kids are really integral to it too. So we do get those kids out on having some recreation and getting to appreciate the outdoors. So it's a great program.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Haley.
Thanks, Haley.
Go home to your family.
Thank you.
I should ask any comments from members of the public? Seeing none, we'll move on. I did it, Bill. Next to everything, like public. We'll move on to Ray. I see you're on there muted, Ray, for the update on the Granada Community Park and Recreation Center progress. There you are.
Good evening, Board of Directors. Give you a little update on what we've been doing since the last meeting. First things first, we applied for Measure K. We submitted the application to provide us a grant from San Mateo County for completing the design and the plan and specification prior to the construction. The application was submitted about a couple of weeks ago, and I'm hoping that we get a positive response. There has been a lot of applications submitted, so it's pretty competitive, but we can keep our fingers crossed since this should be a competitive process. This is a good project, and we hope that we will be granted funding to complete that process of design and get ready for construction. So we'll keep you posted as to what the results of the initial screening will be once we hear back from the county.
The applications they got, did I read correctly, were something like 3 times the amount of funding they have available?
That's correct.
So it'll be pretty competitive.
Give you an update on the environmental process. As you know, we received the biological report. There were no important things that we need to kind of be concerned about. It was pretty straightforward. We had reviewed that. We received also a cultural report that was submitted to the district in December. We also reviewed that, and there weren't that many significant comments. It's just minor correction on a couple of things that we're submitting to the consultant. We have the air quality modeling that is being processed and should be completed this month. as well as the noise study. Noise measurements were taken, and the consultant is working on the technical study to proceed with that. We're still hoping that based on the schedule, we will have a draft environmental ISMND for you by March of this year. So that is our goal. In parallel with that, we've been in contact with the County of San Mateo, the planning department. We let them know that sometime in May, after the public review and incorporation of the comments and approval by the board, that will be you, we will be going to the county to seek a coastal development permit. But in the process, the county has asked us for a meeting prior to that, obviously, to make sure that we're on track with all the studies. And also they want to see the copy of the plan, the 65% plans. So that is our goal this month and next month in February to complete the 65% plans. That includes not just the landscape plan that you have seen, but also the civil plans to show how much cut and fill improvements we're going to do for the grading and the drainage, etc., as well as the architectural plans for the rec center. And so we're going to put a package together. We're setting up a meeting next week as well with all the sub-consultants, and we're going to go over what type of plans, what has to be included in all the sheets, and get ready for the meeting with the county sometime in February. We have been talking with the senior planner at the county, and they desire to assign a particular planner to us. So we're waiting to see who they're going to assign. We talked to not to their planning, also with transportation planning, and or coordinating that with the senior planner to see who the assigned planner would be for our project. And we're hoping to have the package ready to meet with them sometime in February, in parallel of creating the environmental document, the ISMND. We will keep you posted as to the date and the nature of the meeting with the county. Which should be an important one. And that pretty much sets the stage for us going into the planning commission at the county to get the coastal development permit. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to respond.
Just I've got a quick one before I go to Director Grant. Just if I heard you right, I'm just clocking for future agenda items that we should have the environmental and major reports to be in March. So our April meeting should have a significant agenda for public and board review before we submit plans. Is that right?
That is according to the current schedule. That's correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Director Grant, go ahead.
Following that up, so in April, the April meeting, we're planning to have a take comments from the public, and they'll have the bio report, the cultural report, landscape plans, 65% grading and architectural, and that's going to be in April. Is that correct?
So the ISMND would be available. The draft would be in March, and as soon as the board approves us, they will be distributed to the board. As soon as the board approves us to proceed, we will put it out for public review and agency comment. That will be through the clearinghouse. They will have 30 days to comment, and we have to receive the comments and respond to them. And once we responded to the comments adequately, then we can meet with the county, and because they're going to be the responsible agency. We are the agency that will prepare the ISMND. However, the county is the responsible agency to approve it. So we have to coordinate this with the county and make sure they are agreeable to the plan, to the ISMND and the responses to the comments before they would agendize it for their planning commission and the coastal development permit. You're correct, Director Grant.
Okay, so you're meeting with the county in February, you said, and then you're going to meet with them again in after March, so twice. that what you're
We're
saying?
going to meet with them more than twice. We're going to start meeting with them in February, and depending on their requirement as a responsible agency, we will keep them in the loop and continue meeting with them and keeping them abreast of the process, the schedule, the approval through the board here, the comments we will receive. We will receive through the public review comment as well as the clearinghouse, and how we're going to respond to those comments. So we have to keep them in the loop through the process in order for them to support us going through the planning commission and getting the approval.
Okay, and
So it'll be several meetings.
you're calling San Mateo County the responsible agency? Or do you mean the
Correct.
lead agency?
Correct.
Okay,
No.
so they're the lead
We
agency.
are the
We're
lead
the lead-
agency.
we're the lead
They're
agency.
the responsible.
We're the lead agency?
They're the
Okay.
responsible. We are the lead agency for preparing the document.
Okay, can you define the ISMND?
IS is initial study. This is the CEQA. This is California environmental requirements for preparing a document. And IS stands for initial study, and MND is mitigated negative declaration. Based on the initial evaluation of our environmental lead consultant, that is the process that we need to comply with. That's the document that we need to prepare and put out for review. So it's called initial study mitigated negative declaration. So
Do you know
IS/MND.
Do you have an idea of what mitigations you're going to call out right now?
That's still initial, so we're in preliminary stages. So until we complete all the studies, we don't know what the mitigations will be.
And what are the
The
studies?
important part?
I'm sorry, what
Go
are the
ahead, please.
studies that are left?
The studies that currently that we're looking at is the air quality analysis and the noise.
Okay,
Yeah. For traffic, we are currently determining that we are below the threshold that we have to do a traffic impact study. We're not creating that much traffic with either the park or the rec center, according to the consultant. But we have to convince the county that that is the case as well.
Okay.
We have done the biological study because we do have sensitive areas within the park. And we have completed the cultural study.
thanks, Ray.
Sure. My pleasure.
Questions?
Super helpful.
A lot of work.
Yeah.
I don't have any further questions. Do we have any questions from our comments from members of the public? Seeing none. Thank you, Ray. Ray, I'll try to remember to say your name, Ray Vazavi, who's our project
Yes.
for the Granada Community Parks and Recreation. Thank you for the update. It's certainly a lot going on. So we'll be looking for draft documents in March and an important board meeting in April to keep things on track.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ray.
Thank you.
We'll move on to Hope for an update on 2024 tentative recreation plans.
Yep, so just as a reminder to everybody, this Saturday is the Recology Recycle Day pickup down at the Burnham Strip, Granada Community Park parking lot property. So if you have extra things that you want to get rid of, this Saturday from 9 to noon is the day to do that, and we've scheduled out every 3 months for the rest of the year. And we're hoping in April to also do something in conjunction with Earth Day. I'm in discussions with Sea Hugger to do either a beach cleanup or a park cleanup, something along those lines. We're looking at possibly doing a February Valentine's Day date night sort of thing, where maybe the kids can go over at the shops in Harbor Village. I'm going to hopefully be able to work something out with them. I've been talking to them, as well as Supervisor Mueller's office about possibly using Supervisor Mueller's space at the shops at Harbor Village. So we're going to talk to some of the businesses over there and see about some sort of coordinated date night with the kids watching a movie, at Hot Dog or something like that.
Is that you're talking to Beach Break about a movie or?
Beach
One of
Break
the-
or Maverick Staging. Beach Break has maybe changed their direction a little bit, so I'm not entirely sure if they're still doing it that way. And I'm also talked to the library about doing some arts and crafts with kids on this day.
Do you have somebody who's responsible for watching the kids?
Yes, that would probably putting either a couple parent volunteers or something, or the library, something like that. I mean, it wouldn't be, depending on how we set it up, it may not be so totally separate if we do it within the atrium of the shops in Harbor Village. So they're not far from where they would be with their kids.
I'm just thinking of maybe an organization like Coastside Mothers Club to reach out to see if they might want to partner to help support
Okay,
that part of it.
good idea.
They might want to be on a date. Yeah, they might.
I'll leave that.
But yeah, I've reached out to Supervisor Mueller's office and to some of the responsible people over at the shops at Harbor Village, just because, again, as you know, we don't have a space, and especially this time of year, it's hard to plan anything when it might rain. So that's the challenge, but we're trying to figure out some ways to work around that. I also have a meeting next week with the library to bring the bookmobile to the parking lot to see if it's a suitable place where they can start doing a monthly or every 2 weeks stop to bring the bookmobile to El Granada.
Cool.
We have confirmed with the San Mateo County Parks that we can do an Easter egg hunt at Quarry Park on the 23rd of March. So we'll be working with them to coordinate and create some sort of fun event for both children and dogs. I said it would be nice if we could do some sort of dog treat hunt as well in the dog area. I have also spoken with a couple of our former PAC members about some of the events that they used to do, and I'm hoping we can bring back the adaptive cycling at some point in the spring. We have some potential harvest festival or harvest fall festival type things for September that are sort of being worked on. Another movie night, and then in December, looking at doing maybe something in conjunction with the Harbor District to tie in with the boat lighting and another maybe movie night or something like that in the shops at Harbor Village. So those are all sort of the bigger events, but looking for ways to do things more consistently. So I'm hoping that a couple of board members might want to do walks again, and Director Dye mentioned somebody who is a great birder who might want to do a walk. So
We have an outstanding birder who lives
Yeah.
here who has indicated that she might be willing to do a walk for us. So
Excellent.
that would be
Excellent.
great. We could do a wildflower walk. Haven't done that. That would be fun once the flowers start blooming. We do a wildflower walk. There's quite a few things that we could do that would be fun.
There's one that we did several years ago with an arborist.
Right,
of
the
the
tree
tree, the
walk.
trees of El Granada, where we wandered through and looked at native and non-native trees and how old the trees are. It turned out the arborist had a broken foot on the day of the walk, so Dale Ross
Yeah.
that basically did the walk for us, but that actually had about 15 people and scouted out all kinds of trees that you might have noticed and you just didn't know what it was. So that was, it's like birding with trees.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, sounds great.
what was the name of the person?
I will go back and see if I can find it. Dale Ross was the Parks Activity Committee member at the time who organized with him, but we must have arborists.
Yeah, there must be,
Here-
there's
here
so
in
many
El
people
Granada.
doing business right now, cutting down trees in El Granada. I mean, I think they'd be happy to have somebody knowledgeable would be, that's a great idea. I love it. We could also do some kind of like follow Deer Creek down, something like that.
Dale did that walk.
Yeah. I
The
mean, that
urban,
could
the
be
urban
fun.
creek.
I met, when I was doing the Christmas bird count, I met the guy whose Deer Creek actually runs through his property. And he was really nice. And so maybe we could sort of start at the top and do a walk down, follow Deer Creek, which goes across the strip by where the smokehouse used to be over there. It's not through our property, but I don't know. There's some fun things.
Yeah.
Jill, do you have any good ideas on walks we could do, nature things?
Well, would you have to do them in the Burnham Strip or could you do them
No.
anywhere?
I think anywhere.
Yeah, we walked all over El Granada for the trees and the Deer Creek walk.
And the history walk, we
Yeah.
start and go all over. And the same thing when I've done a nature walk in Quarry Park. So we can always do another nature
We
walk.
did the birding walk on the Pillar Point Bluffs, so
Yeah.
anything in our territory goes.
Well, just, I guess you're open to suggestions.
I'm absolutely open to suggestions.
We could even do a different history walk. We do a railroad walk or something, there's ways we could modify that too.
The
One of the
artichoke
things-
wars.
Yeah, one of the things that we did on one of them was to find all the old houses. Take the map that Barbara Van Werf made of, it doesn't have the numbers, but it has you can see the little shape of the house. And actually you can figure out which ones they are. Some of them have been renovated a lot, but it'd be fun.
We
I think
had about between 15 and 20.
Yeah, I think we could do a monthly walk. Might be good to pick a weekend day that we do a GCSD walk. And then people might put it on their calendar and show up for it. And I think we could come up with enough stuff to do. You could do an archaeology walk.
Sure.
We had that on the plan pre-pandemic.
Yes. And then we were going to do a harbor history walk.
With
That'd be fun.
the harbor master, right?
Well, no, it was with the guy who at the time was doing kind of PR for them. He was great. He was going to have a lot of enthusiasm, but then the pandemic happened and got canceled. So anyway, there's a few ideas.
Yeah.
I like getting people outdoors in this community, and showing them how terrific it is.
Yeah, I think my big goal is to have a lot of these sorts of things that are outside, but to also try and figure out a way that we can have some consistent classes, whether it be Rosen or a mommy and me yoga or something like that. But we just have to figure out where that can happen, where it's going to be protected and dry.
Yeah. Great job.
We did Rosen in this room once. It just wasn't very well attended.
But yeah, I mean, the challenge here is with the setup and moving everything and moving it all back. It would be
Yeah.
a little hard.
We could use a community center.
We only had a community center.
Okay. Thank you, Hope. It's actually great to see you're on top of that with so many different things. I'll tell you, from the old days of the pact, we were sort of a lost tribe, figuring out some things on our own. So it's great to see you taking that by the horns. Any other comments or questions from the board? Any comments from, actually, we have Fran on line, who is one of our PAC members. Any additional comments from the public? Seeing none, we will keep going. Consideration of the assessment district budget. Have we not had one before?
No, we have had one before, so I'll take it over.
Okay.
We have had one before, so in past years, the assessment district was still active, if you will. We're paying off the bonds, principal and interest. So every year we produced a levy, and as part of that levy, we had the budget. Well, for the past 2 years, we didn't levy anything because we had enough money in the assessment district accounts to pay the principal and interest. And so since that time, the assessment district has finished its 20-year run. And so we've still got the integrated financing district continuing on, much to my chagrin. But and we had a probably an hour-long call with Cameron Wiest, our bond counsel, what we have to do moving forward and things like that. But because we don't have a levy, this is now a standalone independent budget that Hope put together and contributed, obviously, as well.
And where's the money come from?
The money comes from, we've probably got about 1.45 million in assessment district funds. And one of the discussions we had was, what are we going to do with that money? The problem with the assessment district moving forward is it is funded by contingent assessments. So basically, when someone pulls a permit, they pay a contingent assessment of 8,000 and change, and that goes into the coffer. So the collections we make basically go almost offset the administrative funds we expend each year. So it'll go on in perpetuity with no real benefit to anybody. And the theory was, back in the day, was we'll collect this money and we'll pay back the people who paid the principal and interest over the years.
But there's not enough permits being pulled.
Yeah, so if we pulled 100 permits, it would make sense, but we pull 5 to 10 a year, right? Whatever the number is. So but as I keep telling Cameron, our bond counsel, find a way. But
To sunset this.
right,
Yeah.
but I don't know that we will. So anyway, we've presented this budget for your approval. It's just our administrative costs for the year.
Any
So,
questions? Go ahead.
Right now, we're looking at 90,500 a year in perpetuity.
Yes, and this year will be higher because we're trying to figure out how we do this moving forward, so we'll have more money expended for Cameron. But beyond that, yeah,
Do we have the 1.4 million in an account that would bear
Yeah,
enough
it's in
interest to
camp,
pay for that
actually.
budget? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, oh, in camp, that's
yeah,
great.
yeah, so it's earning 5.25 or something like that %.
So when you're looking at the statement of revenue, no, when you're looking at the statement of net position, it's included in the cash at Leif. So of the 2.5 million in cash at Leif, 1.4 of it belongs to.
No, there's completely separate accounts,
Okay,
completely separate.
So it's not on our
It's
financial.
not on your
report.
financials, because we're a fiduciary to that account. We're not responsible.
oh. Phew.
Yeah.
Yes, that's our reserves. Our shore reserve.
Wait. Yeah, okay, thank
Yes,
you.
you can breathe again.
Yeah.
Okay, any further questions from the board? Any comments or questions from the public? Seeing no hands up, can we have a motion to approve this budget?
So moved.
We have a second? Dr. Randall seconds. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, can we have a roll call?
Okay, Director Clark,
Aye.
Director Dye,
Hi.
Director Marsh,
Aye.
Director Randall. Yes. Director Grant.
Yes.
Okay. Thank
So
you.
what's the legality of roll calls now? That we have 4 people here,
So anytime a director is remote, you have to
have
have
to
a
do roll
roll
call.
call.
Okay,
If all 5 are present
right,
or someone's absent.
okay,
But
You could just raise
no one
hands.
is appearing
Right.
remote.
okay.
So,
I didn't know if it was just a holdover from the
no,
pandemic.
that actually existed prior to the
Right, okay.
So to roll call when there's a remote
Alright.
director.
I don't think it hurts to do roll calls anyway.
All right, we're going to move on to consideration of the use policy for Granada Community Park property parking area.
So per staff or per board direction, staff has put together a sort of package that would be used for any group who would want to use the Granada Community Park parking lot property area. Similar to what happened last year with Park Drive and us using the space. We just want to have something a little more structured for those groups who will come in and just some general rules. So in your packet, you've got the information and requirement sheet that I'm proposing, as well as a use application and a use agreement. The use agreement is the same drafts that we used last year for Alice when they did the final Park Drive program that they did. That was the use agreement we had in place, just to make sure we were all protected and in case anything went wrong. So at this point, I'm just looking for the board to give any feedback if there are additional things you would like to see, either in that application or in the general information. These were pulled from other, for the city of Half Moon Bay, other places that have space that they rent out for events. So that's based on.
Basically, it would be a staff process unless there was amplified music, and then it would come to the board for approval.
Correct.
I have a concern about that because it feels as if there was going to be a very large event, maybe, I mean, staff may want to bring it to the board at some point, but I'm not sure, did the circus have, probably circus did have amplified music, but you know, there are things that could be proposed for the property that wouldn't have amplified music that we would still have concerns about. So I don't know how to capture that. I also wonder about having some sort of general description of the kinds of uses that will be permitted. Like, are we ever gonna allow camping there? I don't think so. You know what I mean? It's like, it might be useful to have. These are the kind of community, just some general description of the kind of events that would be willing to have. I don't know, I'm just not sure. This kind of does it, and I really actually this is great, and I think it's important to do it. I also wanted to have a discussion of rules about who can park in the lot and what the hours are and so forth, so maybe we could have that at a follow-up meeting.
This, Barbara, to your point about the circus, this is specific for the parking area.
Yeah.
So we're not talking about, the circus wanted to use
The whole thing.
the whole strip. And so I think that definitely would come. So there's only certain things that would fit in the parking area.
Right.
And I'm comfortable having staff judge when
Yeah.
it needs to be something more than staff believes that they should do without board approval. Other than
Right, and I
the
think-
music.
Yeah, and I think the challenge too is, you know, similar to like when CERT wanted to set up down there recently. When it's something that comes in between meetings too, and it's small, but it seems like.
Yeah, of
this
course, yes.
allows us to do that. Anything that's bigger, generally somebody's going to apply well in advance, and we would have plenty of time to bring it in front of the board just to make sure. And it's definitely my preference that we can bring anything to the, you know, any event could come to the board as long as it's going to work with the schedule. But if it's something as simple as CERT or, you know, bookmobile with the library, something ongoing like that, it would be easier for staff to be able to process that.
Director Grant, go ahead.
Okay, I just have some questions. So looking at this, how many events do we get annually? I mean,
Not many. I mean, I have only been here for 7 months, and we've had 2 times people using it. One was CERT and one was the final of the hard drive.
I
Series.
think Hard Drive did it twice the year before, and I think almost never before that.
okay. Is it only open to nonprofits?
No, but that's part of what I wanted to discuss, because if there's mention in here of $100 deposit. If you want to have a fee schedule for people renting the space, that's something else that the board would need to direct staff on. So this is
What if somebody wants to throw a wedding party there?
well, that would definitely, I think, have to go in front of the board.
Likely to have amplified music and
Stage, dancing, liquor.
I-
Have we ever, sorry, have we had alcohol there before for any events?
Not
No.
that I'm aware of.
they have to, and they would have to get their own permit. We did actually, Michelle Dragony did a very in-depth investigation of potentially doing summer concerts, not just in the parking lot, but on the property, with maybe food trucks and potentially alcohol, and putting in a stage, but really having the district do that. And we ultimately decided it was sort of overwhelming with our not huge staff for the district to do it or for the volunteers to do it. And so we decided that should wait until we have an actual park and a venue, and it needed generators and electricity and so on. So there are some limitations on the site. There's no electricity, there's no water. You know, they have to bring porta potties. So I think that limits who might want to use it, and, you know, for how long of a day they might want to use it.
Plus it's bumpy and dirty.
Yeah, I mean, the parking lot is the most reasonable
part.
place,
Yeah.
but we have, even with the park drive, said they could use half of the space, but not all of the space,
Yeah.
because our residents like to park there as well.
Maybe it'll come great.
But would they be allowed to bring in generators? You know, put some fuel in there and run those from 2 to 8? Because
think
that's kind of a noise and pollution issue.
You know, I think I would add that to the amplified music or generator, something that creates noise for the neighborhood. It's a good catch. But basically anything amplified or with significant noise, we would want to know about.
I mean, the
Right,
last one that had the amplifiers and the amplified music and the various booths and the food. I went down there. It was pretty loud, but boy, I heard so much good feedback from it and no negative. We got no calls, no comments. Because of its location, it's pretty limited who it impacted. And I think people kind of liked it. It was very cheerful music and it was just a really fun event. So those, of course, we would have to approve, and
they had generators, right?
they had a generator, yeah, and one or more. And so, yeah, I mean,
That's why the skate ramp works as well. It's right on the highway, so you don't hear the noise as much as you would
yeah,
if it was in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And I want to clarify, we put this on the agenda to start exactly this conversation of, what the board wants to see, what they don't want to see, that kind of.
yeah.
I see when you have things like, if they don't vacate the property, they'll pay GCSD $1,000. How are you going to get people to pay money if they don't put a deposit down? Because they don't. Generally, people just don't. So unless you put a deposit down, that's, $1,000 or more that they don't get if they don't vacate. You're not going to get that money.
That's a good point.
Yeah, it's just basically a security deposit.
And then on the other hand, if you require organizations to have this big deposit, then smaller organizations won't be able to access it. So I'm kind of on the fence in that way,
I think maybe 500 is maybe a better medium. It's what you do if you're renting a house in
Yeah.
Hawaii.
Yeah, I think 1,000 for the kind of events that have happened out there, 1,000 is pretty burdensome.
But I know the organization, nonprofit I work with could swing 500. They'd want to
I would like to see things come in front of the board, just because we have some really great minds that can pick apart things. Not that we don't have in Chuck and Hope. We have great minds there too, but just the more minds, the better. And we're so new at this, things are going to come up. And so I'm hesitant to just say, well, let's just have the staff okay things.
I think, well, we don't, because we're making changes, we don't have to approve this tonight, so we can mull it. There have been times, and maybe it was the first time with the hard drive, when staff circulated to the board, just to keep things so that they don't wait for 1 month and then the next month for thoughts and ideas, and comes back to staff, and then staff can manage from there. So we may be able to do that in a more virtual way rather than doing it at meetings, and giving the board a chance to identify those things that they might be concerned about.
I'm wondering if it's, to your question earlier about like types of events, instead of types, like size. Maybe there's some parameters around like size of event or like the amount of space or footprint of the parking lot that they want to take over. That could be something to indicate whether or not it's escalated to the board. So if it's smaller event or number of people or something like that, that's more what we are looking at as a gauge for when it might be.
Yeah.
And our default as staff is going to be to bring it to the board.
Yeah.
Especially like Jill says, in the early stages of all this.
Yeah.
We're gonna bring it to the board if we have, it's the usual, somewhere between a bookmobile and a circus. It's a rational line.
Right.
And, and again, this is a draft. Bill hasn't reviewed the agreement yet. We just wanted to get in front of you to have exactly this. Yeah.
But that's what I mean, like to that point about like a bookmobile, you're expecting like at any one time 10 people.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like a low traffic impact, not a lot of people, not a lot of noise versus circus. You're talking about car, you're talking about hundreds of people, so like maybe that's the barometer that we use, something around scale or size.
It's very difficult to predict though, how many people are going to show up at any given event.
Well, you kind
Depends
of
on-
know what
on
you're
weather.
planning, right? Like if you're planning a book drive, you're not expecting hundreds of people to flood the book drive. I mean, as someone who's planned a lot of events, like you kind of know what you're aiming for. I would hope. Otherwise, there's a problem there. You wouldn't have enough things on hand for people or space to accommodate them or whatever things you're doing. So you're kind of thinking about that in the design.
Yeah, and this will be a dialogue with
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
Like we get this thing and again, our default will be send it out to the board at a minimum.
Yeah.
And then if the board says, hey, I think we should discuss this, we have a special meeting or hopefully have the time to put it in the regular meeting.
But for example, the CERB, they wanted to come and set up like 2 tables and talk about community emergency preparedness, and they had like 5 volunteers there. I mean,
Right.
I think staff should be able to okay
I
that.
think staff,
Right.
okay, that.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah, so work in progress.
Yeah, we'll learn from the first year or so.
Just any more questions or comments from the board? I see we have a comment from public. Michelle, go ahead. I know you explain this site a lot.
Hi. I think events can come up fairly quickly, and perhaps an ad hoc committee, because we don't really have a PAC, really acting right now, and even they have to go on every 2-month schedule. But for timeliness, what the Harbor District did today is they created 2 ad hoc committees yesterday. But one was for search and rescue, which is an issue, and also for an ocean education center. And that allows them to meet, without violating the Brown Act, but they can move things forward with staff in terms of looking at things and stuff like that. Because I think Jill's point, we are at a nascent stage for both Parks and Recs and the community center and everything, really. And I think as new data comes in, we want to be able to pivot quickly. So I suggest an ad hoc committee.
Thank you, Michelle. That is actually how we tended to move the park and rec center planning along more quickly without going
Right.
from meeting.
Exactly.
Any other comments from members of the public? Seeing none, any further discussion? I think the agreement itself is in the right direction, with a couple of expenses as we have discussed. But we'll learn a little bit as we go. I like the idea of an ad hoc committee, if anybody wants to comment on that. It does help move things quickly.
Just as a stopgap, like in case there's.
It's
not
basically
any
2
just
people
allowed
per
to be-
vote to consult with.
Yeah, just to Jill's point of having like another set of brains on it with you, so you're not going through the vacuum if you want.
Yeah, it just can't be more than 2 people.
It looks like he has something to say.
Bill,
It's
you're-
illegal.
I'm just trying to understand exactly what the ad hoc committee would be doing, because if it's something that an ad hoc committee is for a specific project and it's really sort of temporal in nature. It's not like a standing committee that exists, keeps existing. So, I think, like an ad hoc committee to help develop policy or something like that, but I'd be concerned that we're creating an ad hoc committee that's working with staff on a much longer term basis, and then it's a Brown Act committee.
No, I think we would just say for the policy, like in the first, maybe we say like quarter, 6 months, year, whatever feels like policy timeline, like for us to get some reps of this, like how it's working, so that we can then make a recommendation to the board, like this is when board should intervene versus not, like.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of why.
Yeah.
Barbara noticed a being look on my face, because I was trying to figure out where we were, what we were trying to accomplish with the ad hoc committee.
Yes.
Really the policy development.
Yeah, rather than sort of working with staff on a continual basis. As these things come in, is more like a standing.
I'll volunteer Jill and I for that.
That sounds great.
Okay, that's great. I think it's a great idea because it's just, you have a lot of event experience. Jill is good at looking for those wonky details, as she said. So I think that's good. Just to circulate ideas with, so we can keep things moving.
So how will you get this ad hoc meeting or committee going? Someone calls tomorrow and says, I'd like to use the strip property 2 weeks from today to do X, Y, Z. What do you do?
I think we would talk with Hope and see like what review the application together, look at the details, think about like, is this something that feels like the office should handle? Is something that feels like should be elevated to the board? Start to build some criteria around like what makes it board elevation ready or necessary versus staff. Like it'd be very easy to create some sort of guidelines and policy around it that we can make a recommendation and like 8 months? I don't know, what's a good timeline?
We give this a timeline, maybe 6 months.
What would make you happy if we said it was our timeline?
Well, I mean, again, if you're thinking about sort of there's an end
Yes.
date, I think that's fine.
Yes,
I was just more concerned that, this
in
was just
perpetuity.
staff. Yeah, it was working in perpetuity and
Yeah.
and then we're avoiding. So I think if it's temporal in nature and it's about helping us to, create a framework,
Yeah,
I think that's fine.
okay, yeah. Does that sound good, Joe?
Sounds good.
We say 6 months to start and then we'll review.
Yeah, that sounds great. Look at all the events are gonna start coming in. Woo! Parking lot parties.
Well, after they see this use agreement,
I know it's a lot. I tell you.
People scare me.
Right.
Okay. Any other comments on this agenda item? From board or public? Seeing none, we will move on to the engineer's report. It's a pretty meaty report today. So, I had just one question on the engineer's report, which Hope answered for me. So the two things that he recommended are ready for us to approve are on the consent agenda.
yeah.
The mainline extension at Columbus Street and the mainline extension for Big Wave. So I didn't have any further. My only other question is, when do you think we will have the proposal for project 3 budget?
Well, that's a good question. So I talked to a couple board members. So we're gonna have the reserves issue at the February meeting on sewer and parks and whatnot. So that will be a good time for us to look at that as well. And Hope and I discussed the sewer service charge, possibly getting a new report this year. So she sent out an email today on that. That'll probably be packaged together.
Okay.
What is project 3?
It's the third phase,
All the
it's a
stuff we
bigger
haven't done
project.
It's more pipeline replacement.
It's a bad, yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, they put together their list of the worst sewers, if you will, the sewers that needed help the quickest, and we've been marching through that. So
Right.
there's a list that John put together, John Rayner,
From the collection system.
in the collection system. Yeah. So we TV'd them, we reviewed them, and we looked at call out logs and things like that.
And this year, given some extra expenses, it may be basically how much of that we can afford.
Right. And that's why, we did this, we bundled this into 2-year programs, and it maybe we just do it a little later. And, plus I'm also looking at the engineering costs, because they seem to be high relative to the amount. And, I always joke, I'm a simple guy, and look at it, you've got 2 manholes and you've got to connect them. You don't need a lot of design for that. So,
Especially with the burst pipe thing, you're basically.
right, they're coming
feeding
that
something
right.
through.
Yeah. So I'm looking at that as well.
Well, and just to make it clear that right now, there are no problem pipes that really need to be replaced, because if there were, we would do that.
And
This
thank
is
you
being
for
very
clarifying.
proactive. We still have some old pipes from 1910, which are showing no signs of problems as far as we know. And they've been TV'd, and we have one, and the people who do the cleaning every year have a sense of their how they're doing, and they report on that, anything that comes up, and they don't have anything significant that they've been reporting. So while this is important to keep doing, because we want to upgrade all of the pipes underground in the new materials that are so much better, there's no emergencies. So this
Thank
is
you,
being
Barbara. Yes.
proactive and responsible.
I'm usually
Yeah.
more careful in my words,
Yes.
but you're correct.
And-
Yes, if you had a
and
problem sewer.
The monthly and daily flow charts done by Sam show that when it rains a lot here, TCSD's flow goes up very little.
Yeah.
So if any,
Yeah, we don't have a lot of infiltration.
right.
Okay.
Okay, that was my own comment. Any other questions, comments on the engineer's report? None. Do we have any questions or comments from the general public on the engineer's report? See no hands. We will move on to the report on sewer authority Mid-Coast.
Why don't you talk about some of those things that we've done, and then I'll talk about the money,
Some of the things we've done,
you know. Some of the stuff that's happened.
well,
Some of this coming last name, right?
um,
I don't know who to ask. I'll ask them. They just keep misspelling that. Somehow my last name's misspelled.
Oh, on Sam?
On Sam.
Oh,
I
gotcha.
think we've corrected them on that because you brought.
It was right, and now it's wrong. It's a very important item, so please address immediately, Sam.
It's important, you know?
They want the alias.
List of.
I can talk about.
well, what Sam has been, doing is, the last meeting was taken up primarily with, responses to a memo that Sam's attorney sent out. And, I think it got the board and the agency's attention, certainly, about, this was about the ERF consent decree and what the Sam had agreed to and then gotten ERF to agree to it, some extensions and most of that was done in the closed session, so I can't talk about it other than that. But he also said about the overall, they now appealed and waiting for the remature on the Half Moon Bay versus smaller districts. They expect it to take another year to resolve. And so I think it's actually it's a better recognition of reality that the board voted or consensed to move forward with the two main things that are required by the ERF decree, which is the Princeton Pump Station and the Montara Force Main. And but that will require a budget amendment. Is this what you want to talk about?
Yeah.
Okay, but which is supposed to be presented to the board on the 22nd. So.
Yes, so Sam is proposing a fairly significant budget amendment. There are 4 items included in it. One is an increase in cost for 2 projects that were actually in the 22-23 budget for the clarifiers, which are the big tanks that have this things that go around that pull the stuff off the top. The ones that you see when you first go in there. Those Sam wants to go ahead and do those projects now, but the costs are much higher than expected. They have done some tweaks to the budget, and they have found 4 projects that were in the past approved budgets for which we have paid already. So we pay as we go along. Every year we pay 1/12 of the budget every month. So those had been paid for, but they have turned out to be less priority or not necessary. So about $400,000 has been freed up from that, which will help fund these 2 clarifier projects. So that's there. And then they're proposing a budget amendment for 2 things. One is for the Princeton Pump Station, and the approved budget was one which was approved by the full SAM board, which was $1,263,000 and change. And now they're proposing that it's going to cost, expecting it to cost $2,602,773. So that is going to require a 1.339 million budget adjustment. And then the Montero.
Sorry, didn't we have a special meeting to look at that 1.2 to 2.6 jump and already approve it? Or was that backburnered by Sam because of the Half Moon Bay stipulations? Okay, so we have seen that before, it just hasn't been approved.
That's correct. And the last time it came up at SAM, Half Moon Bay said, yeah, they think it's great, we should move forward with it, but they weren't going to pay their share.
Mhm.
So we all said, well, then never mind.
Mhm.
So now the numbers are slightly different and the Montero Forest Main already approved they want $783,000 more dollars. They got a bid for the design of it, which is they are saying, and I have no reason to think it's not true, we absolutely have to get going with that design if we're going to meet the deadlines in the ERF settlement. So this, on Monday night, they are going to come back to the board and ask us to authorize a budget amendment for 23-24 of $1,720,000. No, I'm sorry, that was the original. The amended is $3,842,000 and the change is $2,122,000. And I can share these numbers. I just got them today. Which means, and I took a look at this, but I don't think I need to just throw out the numbers tonight. If our budget is increased by a total of $400,000, because that's for the 23-24 budget, and we haven't been paying on that, we would have to most likely pay that in 4 installments, March, April, May, and June. So that would be an extra $100,000 each month.
So the 400,000 is basically GCSD's 20% based on
16%. Yes.
Do we believe that halfway through 60?
We don't know. We'll know Monday night.
Okay.
There's no indication at this point that of how they're going to vote. They did speak in favor of moving these projects forward, but that's kind of what they said last time, which was, sure, you can
Right.
do these projects,
But we're not gonna pay.
but we're not going to pay our share. And
Was that the posture?
Yes, that was the
I mean,
statement.
that's
And now I'm going back on Monday. Wow, this is very interesting.
so that will be very interesting to have this discussion and see where we go from there.
Interesting, yeah.
And, the other
That's
question,
fun to watch.
yes, and there was the question of doing the clarifier projects for the extra, I don't know, I for some reason I didn't bring that piece of paper tonight. I was just staring at it all day. The clarifier project, they are going to present a report that shows why it is critical that it be done now, because that's a lot of money that could be used for one of these projects. Now, it couldn't be shifted to either of these projects, however, without half of base approval, because they voted for that money for the original clarifier projects and for the ones that were canceled. And shifting it to the ones that they object to, I think there would have to be a vote for that. So it's going to be an interesting meeting on Monday.
Can you send those numbers?
I will. I just got these.
Yeah, the big picture for the clarifier, the budget in 2022-23. So what is that? A year and a half ago, they passed it. It was $450,000 and bid came in at $900,000.
Mm.
And there's a lot of issues that we discussed at the managers meeting with the bid stuff to talk about.
Now, in the budget this year that we've been paying is $1 million for a replacement generator. And they have really not moved forward with that at all. So there are a number of things. I don't have it. I don't think we're ready to look at it tonight, but I did I added all of the outstanding CIP project charts, those tracking charts, created one for outstanding so we can look at what the commitments that we have made are, what the current money spent is, what is left in the budget, and therefore take a look at several $1 million of money that's missing to finish the projects that we have already voted to support and paid money for. So hopefully we'll be able to take a look at that and get some clarity on how those things are going to be done. But just the bottom line for tonight is everybody, there's going to be big costs because these come through and we plan, but we're talking millions of dollars for the pipeline, which has to be done in the next 2 years. So we're going to have to come up with a ton of money. And I do believe that the ERF lawsuit requires that we do that. And the Montero Force Main should be replaced. So
And we believe the ERF consent decree requires all parties to participate.
We certainly
Because all
do.
parties agreed to it. Got it.
yes,
Barbara, I just want to thank you for the work that you do, because I know you probably stared at those numbers all days today. Other people were out doing things they probably enjoyed more. But I really appreciate the tracking that you do, because when you said, there's these things outstanding that we have paid for that haven't been done, but the money that we paid is not necessarily showing up in the budget. We have this ongoing concern that money gets shifted to operations from.
I don't think it gets
projects
shifted to operations. It gets shifted to other projects.
as they come up.
It doesn't fall, really. It just, yeah, we
Yeah.
give
It
them
gets
$3
shifted
million
away from the things that-
collectively, and they
right,
spend $1.5 million on projects, and the other $1.5 million goes to different projects or O&M. And I want to put a finer point on your ERF. The ERF settlement does require that we replace the Montero Force.
Yes.
Main.
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
Princeton pump station. Right?
Yeah, well, that was, they had to do a study to see that, but the force main was a no-brainer.
And I think at this point, the settlement does require us to do the Princeton pump station because we have reported to them
Because we did
now that it
work.
has to be done.
Right.
And we have entered into a contract to do it. See, that's the other thing, is we actually, they signed the contract because they had the bid.
And they
And
didn't want it to expire.
they didn't want it to expire. It was a good bid. And so they signed the contract without necessarily having all the funding to complete the work. And so we're going to pay them by the end of this fiscal year, if we vote for this Monday night, the money for the entire project, most of which is not going to happen until next year.
So we just really have to make sure that money is kept safe for that project. That's the thing that always worries me when we approve a project, pay for the project, is that money basically held in escrow for that project.
No, it's not. But I do think most of the CIP money stays in the CIP budget. I don't think that's
Just
getting
other
moved to
projects
operations,
come
but
in and
just-
out of it.
Well, Sam has, this is my harping on this, which is that Sam has committed to doing more projects. And when they go over budget, there's no way of going back and, well, this new chart, I hope will help do it. But to say, we have billed you for all these projects. We've done these, these are in process and so forth, but there's more obligations and things go over budget than money has been paid. So, they're paying for stuff with cash flow.
It also seems that there's the lag time between proposing the project, doing the initial cost estimate, and getting that approved. And then it's a year and a half later before you go out to bid for it. Of course, the costs go up.
Yep.
And it seems like they typically are going up 40, 50, 80%.
Well, and as usual, I hold my tongue here a little bit, but yes.
I'm looking at you so that
I know.
you make a face.
Yes. Our fire project that really needed to be done was approved a year and a half ago. So yeah, there is that lag. And to your point, Nancy, in years past, they would get money for projects. They didn't do the projects and their reserves would build up. Then in more recent years, they get money for the projects. They don't do some of the projects.
But
And it
other
goes to
things
different
come up.
Projects like aeration basin number 4, which was not on a budget, cost $450,000 allegedly, and wound up costing $900,000. And that project, yes, comes from the money that's there at SAM for other projects.
But I do think this change now, which they identified projects that are not going to be done, and specifically said that money will be used for this project that's going to cost more than originally budgeted, is a really good step. I mean,
Instead of just asking for the extra and leaving those projects on the books as funded.
right. So, and I think the tracking that we're doing is improving. So I think we're making progress, and with all the money that's going to be flowing through there,
This is why we voted you to stay on the finance committee.
I would mention that Sam is in a really tight spot here. The revised ERF decree it requires the Princeton pump station to be done by the end of the fiscal year, as Barbara mentioned. That's
4
5 months from
yeah.
now. The contract was let, the money isn't there available yet. And there will be another 300,000. I don't know where this came from, that there are $300,000 worth of purchase orders are in progress. The contractor is just mobilizing this month, and more of the numbers that I got from the last meeting, which you just upped, was 1.14 million to finish that project by the end of June, which is good luck.
And I asked that question at our managers meeting. Kishan seems to they will be completed. Now it's not a giant project, so 4 months it may be.
Well, plus ERF has not been unreasonable in the past. And I think if we have a contractor on site doing it and they miss the deadline by a couple of months.
Yeah, they've been
Works
more
to
than
be done.
reasonable.
We're
Yeah.
showing substantial
I,
progress.
I think they want to see it done, and therefore if it's 2 months late, but it's in progress, I don't know, we'll have to see, but that seems, I'm not that as worried about that one.
Yeah, even bigger is the force main,
Yeah.
and that has to be done by, I wrote down April 25th of 2025. That can't be right. I think it's the end of another.
The design has to be completed by December this year.
Right,
And I don't remember.
that's $1
what
million
the-
bucks.
Yeah,
And like I said, they're replacing the pipe in the same alignment, and
well, and but Barbara and I talk about this more maybe inside. Those are the questions I have. We've replaced 3 other segments of the force main, and we certainly haven't spent $1 million on design. I don't know, but I'm
Yeah.
running Sam.
So at this point, I mean, I'm not sure how this works, but I guess my intention is to vote yes on these budget amendments, because I think we need to.
To
Unless-
comply with the RF,
Yes.
no, we have to.
We
Well,
have-
and we have to
But-
look at, I forget which one of you raised the point, and we're gonna be spending this or funding this over 4 months. It may not be 4 months. If the design is due in December, maybe we can fund it in whatever it is, 11 months or 10 months.
we can fund Princeton over 4 months and the other one over 10 months or something.
And how
Right.
does that work though with relation to next year's budget, which we're just about to start, which we have to start? So,
Well,
yeah,
if you're gonna spend $1 million on design, you're gonna spend 300,000 in the next 4 months. That's this amendment, and then next year budget starts off at 700,000 already. And then, add on your capital projects. Something's gotta give, as I keep saying. We can't, they added the generator project and the boiler project at the May meeting last year on the same budget, because they had no capital improvement budget. And then all of a sudden, the Montero Force Main came back on. So now we just layered it on. We set our rates, if you all remember, we set our rates for $2.5 to $3 million in capital projects for Sam. And every year they're doing this stuff. We had our budget amendment in August last year, right? A month after the budget was passed. So, we're trying to get some kind of sense of here's the number.
Yeah, if it's not 2.5, maybe it's 3.5, but what is it?
Right.
Yeah.
And let's stick to it.
Because we have to do 218s and project.
Right. And they don't
I'm
have to
learning.
worry about that.
and I would like to think, this is just sort of thinking ahead, but that somehow we could say to our community, we are going to need more money for the next 2 years or 3 years. And then I don't know if you can then reduce rates.
We can reduce rates.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is something we could do. And I think if we have to raise the rates, I'm prepared to go to the community and say, this is why.
We have to do it.
We have to do it.
We need sewers that work.
And we don't, I don't know if you guys know how big the sewers bill was a year ago. So We haven't been fined for that either.
Right.
That could be big. I think they're holding off because there were like, supposedly like 27 sewer spills around.
Well, I was gonna say, it was a catastrophic event,
Mhm.
a 100-year rain or 50-year rain or whatever the heck it was, right? So, the other spill we had, Sam had no reason, not no reason.
Well, it's because Half Moon Bay wouldn't pay for the repair of that force main also,
I'm not
correct?
gonna go.
Chuck, this is going to be a SAM budget amendment for the current fiscal year budget. And we have to come up with more money in the next 4 months. Will that be an amendment for our current fiscal year?
Well,
Budget?
depending how much it is, probably, but we're getting so close to our next budget.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it matters. I kind of
It's
have
gonna
a,
be 404,000.
we're a little bit in uncharted territory because I've never had, this is a JPA budget that we don't control.
Yeah.
But we've got to pay it. So, yeah, we may. I mean, the last one, what did it cost us? It's like $230,000. The Princeton pump station. That was our share of the 1.3 million extra. So, but with this kind of thing, I think it behooves us to put it in place in the budget amendment.
And then this next budget amendment that Sam will be in our next fiscal year. And we'll just have to.
We'll have a new budget.
We'll have to put.
We'll have a
build it in
budget,
that,
yeah. Depending on how they pace the payments.
Right, okay.
Did they let the contract to SRT or they're waiting for this amendment?
They're waiting.
Okay.
Just
But
one.
that money was it 300K? That was.
Yes, but it's going to be another 700,000.
Right, but that's the initial design was already, given to.
Yeah, we had some money.
I thought it was
Sam.
funded.
Yeah, we had.
It was 1,015,170. So we had 200,000 from a prior thing. I can't remember what it was. That was previously approved by Sam. Yeah, so the budget they passed was 1.72. So that $220,000 was money previously approved for the pre-design report. That's what it was.
Yeah.
For the horsemen.
And just one more bit of news from Sandwich is that they are in the process of topping a whole bunch of trees that are over on the side behind Sam, the Casa Del Mar side, because they've got a new berm there, but there is a drainage there, the Kehoe ditch that comes in, and they're worried if those trees are top heavy and come over in a big storm, that could cause the plant to flood from that direction. So I thought you'd all be happy to hear that there's some proactive stuff going to prevent problems in a future storm.
So my one question was going to be expected 2 to 3 inches of rain this weekend. Are they ready?
I think so. Hope so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
nice to see
they've
this.
spent a lot of time on this.
They're a lot
Yeah.
more ready than last
Yes.
time.
Great.
Yeah, they are. Some other numbers from Sam is that our flow for November was 16.63%. Half Moon Bay was at 64.03%. And the other close to 20% was MWSD. And the only bright news is that there were no sewer overflows at all of SAM for November, including GCSD, of course. So,
GCSD has not had one in 12 months.
Right.
And
In the last 12 months.
well,
Probably
we
more
only
than
had
12 months.
all we had 12 months ago was a very tiny one on the strip from the big one. And one more thought on all this is that, the county just bought that 300-acre parcel down south of Half Moon Bay where they want to put
The Bay City Flowers Park.
the flowers parcel. They want to put
some,
workforce housing in there.
some large number.
It does not have a sewer connection at this point. It has some kind of internal.
Yeah, that's what they said they had.
Also not within the city limits of Half Moon Bay unless they.
Right. But
A
it's
portion of the property is in the city limits, but their own self-contained sewer plant is not in the city limits. So,
and it's not sufficient for
Right.
building new housing. So that's just something that's going to be interesting when it comes up because that's going to add to their capacity and they're going to have to expand somehow. So that'll be interesting.
Okay, any other comments on the SAM report from members of the board? We try to tune in on Monday night. It's a big birthday in my house, but I'll try. No, whose birthday? My husband. Any comments on SAM from members of the general public? Seeing none, we will move on to the consent agenda, which includes our December 21st special meeting minutes, our December 21st regular meeting minutes, the January 2024 warrants, November 2023 financial statements. As mentioned earlier, the dedication of the Class 3 mainline extension to serve property number 047288030 at 1230 Columbus Street, known as the Soloway project. Dedication of Class 3 mainline extension to serve APN 047311060 Airport Street, which is the Big Wave project. Anybody like to pull anything from the consent agenda? Seeing none, can I go straight to a motion on this, or do I need comments from the public? Do we have any comments from the public on the consent agenda? Seeing none.
I'll move to approve
Just had to ask.
the consent agenda.
Director Clark moves to approve, Director Randall seconds. Any further comment or questions from the board? Seeing none, can we have a roll call, please?
Director Clark,
Aye.
Director Dodd. Aye. Director Marsh,
Aye.
Director Randall,
Yes.
Director Grant.
Yes.
Okay, consent agenda is approved. We'll move on to committee reports. Any report on seminars, conferences, or committee meetings? Just remind everybody, because I reminded myself that the CSDA leadership session that we talked about recently, the one coming up is February 4th to 7th in San Luis Obispo. There's one in April in San Diego. So that had sort of moved off my radar screen, but those dates are coming up.
And I do think that as of up until the end of the day tomorrow, there's some special rate that's going for the one in San Luis Obispo. So if somebody does think they want to do it, it'd be great to sign up between now and tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. Any further comment? Any public comment? Saying none, move to the information calendar, the attorney's report,
No report.
general manager's report,
Nothing further.
administrative staff report,
Nothing further.
and future agenda items. We just noted the parks review for April. Any other future agenda items?
We'll review in 6 months the policy on parking lot.
6 months from now is so August, review the parking lot policy.
6 months from now is June. So July.
July,
January.
July. I was thinking we're in February.
I guess well, yeah.
Okay. Somewhere around July,
Yeah.
we'll review the parking lot policy. And recommendations from the ad hoc committee. Anything further? Any further comments from the public? Seeing none, we will adjourn our regular meeting and adjourn to closed session.
No, we will
Oh,
keep the
we'll
regular meeting going.
Open and adjourn to closed session. So we will, thank you to Michelle and Fran. We're going to send you off because it's closed session.